Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm delighted to see you all here today. Today, we will be discussing GMP for active pharmaceutical ingredients, or API, and this is part 3 of our series. My name is Dr. S.K. Singh, and I'll be guiding you through this session. In this presentation, we'll explore the key principles, regulatory requirements, and best practices related to the manufacturing and quality control of APIs. So, let's get started and dive into this important topic. Let's take a closer look at documentation and records within the GMP framework for active pharmaceutical ingredients, or APIs. As you know, proper documentation is the backbone of good manufacturing practices. It ensures traceability, accountability, and consistency throughout the production process. In this part of the presentation, we'll focus on how meticulous record-keeping supports quality and compliance. We'll discuss what kinds of records are essential, how they should be maintained, and the importance of accuracy and completeness. Ultimately, robust documentation not only helps meet regulatory requirements, but also safeguards product integrity and patient safety. So, understanding these principles is crucial for anyone involved in API manufacturing. Let's talk about documentation and records, which are fundamental to maintaining quality and compliance. First, we need to ensure that all system and specifications are properly documented. This means preparing, reviewing, and getting approval for all documents before they are distributed. Think of SOPs, standard operating procedures, as the backbone of this process. They guide how documents are issued, revised, superseded, or withdrawn. And it's crucial that we control these changes carefully by maintaining revision histories. We also have specific SOPs for retaining various types of documents, such as development history reports, scale-up reports, technical transfer reports, process validation reports, as well as training, production, control, and distribution records. Proper retention periods for these documents are essential. They ensure that records are available for review when needed, but also that they are disposed of appropriately once their retention period expires. All of this fits into our broader GMP requirements for active pharmaceutical ingredients, or APIs, specifically in Part III. These procedures help us maintain traceability, accountability, and compliance throughout the manufacturing process, supporting the overall integrity of our quality system. Now, let's discuss the importance of documentation and records in GMP for active pharmaceutical ingredients. First, it's essential to keep production, control, and distribution records for at least 1 year after the expiry date of the batch. For APIs with retest dates, these records should be maintained for at least 3 years after the entire batch has been distributed. This ensures we have a traceable history in case any issues arise later on. Next, all entries in these records must be indelible, meaning they should be permanent and tamper-proof. It's best practice to make these entries immediately after completing each activity, and the person responsible should clearly identify themselves, usually by signing or initialing. If any corrections are needed, they should be dated and signed, and the original entry must remain readable, never erased or obliterated. This maintains the integrity and transparency of our records. Additionally, records should be kept on site for quick access, but if stored elsewhere, they should be promptly retrievable when needed. Lastly, whether we're working with original documents or true copies, the key is ensuring their authenticity and integrity. All of these practices help us comply with GMP requirements and ensure the quality and safety of our APIs throughout their life cycle. Let's take a closer look at some important aspects of documentation and records in GMP for active pharmaceutical ingredients. First, when it comes to records, whether they're system records or specifications, it's crucial that they are properly maintained and accessible. In cases where records are microfilmed or stored electronically, we need to ensure that there is suitable retrieval equipment available, along with a reliable means to produce hard copies if necessary. This helps maintain the integrity and accessibility of critical information. Next, specifications play a vital role. They should clearly define the requirements for raw materials, intermediates, APIs, labels, and packaging materials. Additionally, if there are process aids, gaskets, or other materials that could significantly impact product quality, these should also be specified. Setting these standards up front helps ensure consistency and quality throughout production. Acceptance criteria for in-process controls are another key point. These criteria serve as checkpoints during manufacturing, allowing us to verify that each step meets quality standards before proceeding. It's a critical part of maintaining control and ensuring the final product's quality. Finally, electronic signatures must be both authenticated and secure. This means implementing safeguards so that digital approvals are trustworthy and tamper-proof, reinforcing the integrity of our documentation system. All of these elements, record-keeping, specifications, in-process controls, and secure electronic signatures, are essential components of GMP for APIs. They work together to ensure that our manufacturing processes are controlled, transparent, and compliant with regulatory standards. Let's talk about equipment cleaning and use records. It's essential to keep detailed records of cleaning, sanitization, or sterilization processes, as well as maintenance activities. These records should include key information like the date and, if relevant, the time of the activity. Additionally, it's important to document the product and batch number associated with each use or cleaning event, along with the person responsible. Now, when it comes to dedicated equipment, remember that individual records for each piece are not always necessary. Instead, you can incorporate cleaning, maintenance, and usage records into the batch record or keep them separately, as long as they are properly maintained and accessible. This practice helps ensure traceability and accountability, which are critical in GMP for active pharmaceutical ingredients. By systematically documenting these activities, we maintain product quality and compliance throughout the manufacturing process. Let's talk about equipment cleaning and use records. It's essential to keep detailed records of cleaning, sanitization, sterilization, and maintenance activities. These records should include the date and, if appropriate, the time of each activity. It's also important to document the product and batch number associated with the equipment, as well as the person responsible for performing the task. When it comes to dedicated equipment, such as equipment used exclusively for certain products, individual records for each piece aren't always necessary. Instead, you can include cleaning, maintenance, and usage details within the batch record or maintain separate records that are easily accessible. This practice ensures traceability and helps verify that equipment is properly maintained and cleaned, which is vital for maintaining product quality and compliance with GMP requirements for active pharmaceutical ingredients. Remember, consistent documentation supports overall quality control and accountability in our operations. Let's now look at the records related to raw materials, intermediates, and API labeling and packaging materials. It's essential to document details such as the name of the manufacturer, the identity, and the quantity of each shipment. This includes every batch of raw materials, intermediates, or labeling and packaging materials used for APIs. We also need to keep track of the supplier's control number or any other identifying number, as well as the number assigned upon receipt and the date when the materials arrived. These records help us trace the origin and ensure the integrity of our materials throughout the process. Additionally, results from any tests or examinations conducted on these materials should be documented, along with the conclusions we draw from those results. This includes tracking how the materials are used within the manufacturing process. Another critical aspect is the review and examination of API labeling and packaging materials. We must make final decisions regarding any materials that are rejected, ensuring only suitable, quality-verified materials are used. To aid this process, we maintain master or approved labels. These serve as a reference point for comparison, ensuring consistency and compliance with our standards. All of these practices are part of our GMP requirements for active pharmaceutical ingredients, helping us maintain quality, traceability, and compliance throughout the production cycle. Let's talk about master production and control instructions and records. These are essential documents that guide the manufacturing process. They need to be prepared, checked, dated, and signed to ensure accuracy and accountability. Now, what should these instructions include? First, clearly state the name of the product being manufactured. This helps avoid any confusion down the line. Next, include the document reference code, which acts as a unique identifier for easy tracking. It's also important to list all raw materials and intermediates involved. These should be identified by their names or codes, especially if they have any special quality characteristics that could impact the final product. Along with this, specify the quantity or ratio of each raw material or intermediate to be used in the process. This ensures consistency and quality control. Additionally, the instructions must specify where the production will take place, the production location, and detail the major equipment involved. This helps maintain proper records and ensures the process is carried out in the correct environment with the right tools. All of these elements together form a vital part of GMP for active pharmaceutical ingredients, particularly in Part III. They help ensure that every batch is produced under controlled, documented conditions, maintaining the quality and safety of the final product. Now, let's take a closer look at the detailed production instructions. First, it's essential to clearly define the sequences to be followed throughout the manufacturing process. This helps ensure consistency and quality at every step. Next, we specify the ranges of process parameters, such as temperature, pH, and agitation speeds, which must be maintained within defined limits to achieve the desired product quality. Sampling instructions are also crucial. They guide when and how samples should be taken for testing. In-process controls are implemented to monitor critical quality attributes during production, and acceptance criteria are established to determine if each batch meets the necessary standards. Time limits are set for individual processing steps and the entire process, helping us manage production schedules and maintain control. Expected yield ranges at various phases of processing are documented, providing benchmarks to assess efficiency and identify potential issues early on. Additionally, the instructions include special notations, precautions, cross-references, which serve as important guidance to prevent errors and ensure safety. Storage instructions are equally vital. They detail how the active pharmaceutical ingredients should be labeled, the appropriate packaging materials to use, and the optimal storage conditions to preserve stability and potency. All these detailed instructions collectively support our commitment to good manufacturing practices and consistent quality in API production. Now let's talk about batch production records, also known as batch production and control records. These are prepared for each intermediate and active pharmaceutical ingredient, or API, and they must have a unique batch or identification number. This helps us trace each batch accurately, ensuring full traceability. Each record is dated and signed, confirming when it was created and who was responsible. It needs to contain complete information, nothing is left out, so we can verify everything later if needed. Before the record is issued, it must be checked thoroughly to ensure accuracy. What does the record include? It documents the dates and times of production steps, as well as the major equipment used, like reactors, dryers, and mills. It also provides specific identification for each batch, including weights, measures, and batch numbers of raw materials, intermediates, or any reprocessed materials involved during manufacturing. Critical process parameters are recorded based on actual results, which is vital for ensuring consistent quality. Any sampling performed during production is also documented. And finally, the record bears the signatures of the persons performing the work and those directly supervising or checking it. All of these elements together form a comprehensive, traceable record that supports GMP compliance for active pharmaceutical ingredients. This meticulous record-keeping is the backbone of ensuring product quality and safety throughout the manufacturing process. Let's take a closer look at batch production records, also known as batch production and control records. These records are essential for ensuring quality and traceability throughout the manufacturing process. They include important data such as in-process and laboratory test results, which help us monitor the quality at various stages. We also record the actual yield at different phases or specific times, giving us a clear picture of the efficiency and consistency of the process. Additionally, the records describe the packaging and labeling details for intermediates or active pharmaceutical ingredients, or APIs. If the API or intermediate is made commercially available, a representative label is also documented. Another critical aspect is documenting any deviations from the process, along with their evaluations and investigations. This ensures that any issues are thoroughly examined and addressed. The records also include results from release testing, which confirm whether the batch meets all quality specifications before it's released. Furthermore, if a critical deviation occurs, a written standard operating procedure, or SOP, must be followed to investigate the root cause. If necessary, these investigations should extend to other batches to ensure systemic issues are identified and resolved. All these elements form part of the GMP requirements for active pharmaceutical ingredients, and they help us maintain control, consistency, and quality throughout the manufacturing process. Now, let's talk about the batch production record review process. First, we follow a standard operating procedure, or SOP, that guides us through reviewing and approving both the batch production and laboratory control records. This includes everything from the manufacturing process to packaging and labeling, all overseen by the quality unit or units responsible for quality assurance. It's crucial that before a batch is released, it must meet all specified criteria. That means the quality unit thoroughly reviews and approves the records to ensure compliance with all specifications. This step helps us maintain product quality and safety. Additionally, we review any deviations that occur during production, along with investigation reports and out-of-specification, or OOS, results. This comprehensive review process ensures any issues are identified and addressed before release. Delegation plays a role here as well. The production unit is authorized to release intermediates, but only those that are not shipped outside the control of the manufacturing company. This helps maintain strict control over the material flow and quality. Finally, I want to emphasize that this review process is a critical part of adhering to GMP for active pharmaceutical ingredients, or APIs. It's a key element in ensuring we produce safe, effective, and high-quality APIs in accordance with regulatory standards. Now, let's talk about production and in-process controls. First, it's essential that raw materials are weighed under appropriate conditions, using suitable devices to ensure accuracy. This helps maintain the integrity of the materials right from the start. When subdividing material into containers, we need to include clear information such as the material name or item code, the receiving or control number, and the weight or measure of the material in the new container. If applicable, we also record the reevaluation or retest date to ensure ongoing quality. Critical weighing, measuring, or subdividing operations should be witnessed by a qualified person to confirm proper procedures are followed. Additionally, there must be a verification step where production confirms the materials before they are used. All these controls are vital components of GMP for active pharmaceutical ingredients, or APIs, and they help ensure that each step in the process maintains the quality and consistency of the final product. This focus on meticulous control and verification is key to meeting regulatory standards and delivering safe, effective medicines. Let's take a closer look at production and in-process controls. First, it's essential to identify the critical activities that are either witnessed directly or subjected to equivalent controls. This ensures that every step is closely monitored and compliant with quality standards. Next, we compare actual yields with expected yields at designated steps. This comparison helps us verify that the process is performing as planned and allows us to quickly identify any deviations. Speaking of deviations, it's crucial that any deviations are properly documented and thoroughly investigated to understand their root causes and prevent recurrence. we also need to keep track of the processing status of major units of equipment. This visibility ensures that all equipment is functioning correctly and that no steps are skipped or overlooked. Additionally, control materials may sometimes need to be reprocessed or reworked to meet quality specifications. It's vital to prevent unauthorized use of these materials to maintain process integrity. All these controls are fundamental in maintaining GMP compliance for active pharmaceutical ingredients, or APIs. They help us ensure that each batch is consistent, safe, and of high quality, which is the cornerstone of responsible manufacturing. This slide emphasizes the importance of rigorous control throughout the production process, connecting directly to our overall goal of ensuring product quality and patient safety. Let's talk about time limits. It's crucial to meet these time limits, just like in batch manufacturing records, or BMR, to make sure the quality of our intermediates and APIs is maintained. Sticking to these timelines helps us keep control over the process and ensures consistency. If there are any deviations from the established time frames, they need to be documented thoroughly and evaluated carefully. This way, we can understand what caused the delay or deviation and address any potential risks. In the context of GMP for active pharmaceutical ingredients, or APIs, especially in this part III, adhering to time limits is a key aspect of maintaining quality and compliance throughout the manufacturing process. It's all about being diligent, transparent, and proactive to ensure that every step meets the required standards. Let's talk about the importance of meeting time limits, as outlined in the BMR. Ensuring that we stick to these time frames is crucial for maintaining the quality of intermediates and APIs throughout the manufacturing process. When deviations do occur, it's essential that they are properly documented and thoroughly evaluated to understand their impact. However, there are situations where strict time limits might not be appropriate. For example, during processes like pH adjustment, hydrogenation, or drying, the completion of these steps depends on in-process sampling and testing rather than a fixed time. In such cases, flexibility is key to ensuring the process is truly complete and meets quality standards. Additionally, intermediates that need to be held for further processing are stored under suitable conditions. This helps preserve their integrity and ensures they remain suitable for the next steps in production. All of these points fit into the broader GMP framework for active pharmaceutical ingredients, emphasizing the importance of control, documentation, and flexibility where necessary to uphold product quality. Now, let's talk about the rejection and reuse of materials during the manufacturing process. When intermediates or APIs don't meet our established specifications, we identify and quarantine these materials to prevent them from proceeding further in production. These rejected materials aren't simply discarded. Instead, they may be reprocessed or reworked to bring them up to standard. It's important that we keep a detailed record of the final disposition of all rejected materials for traceability and quality control purposes. Reprocessing involves reintroducing an intermediate or an API, especially if it doesn't conform to standards, back into the process. This can include repeating steps such as crystallization or applying other chemical or physical manipulations like distillation, filtration, chromatography, or milling. These steps are part of our established manufacturing process and are used to correct and improve the quality of the material. This approach aligns with good manufacturing practices, or GMP, for active pharmaceutical ingredients. It reinforces our commitment to quality and compliance, ensuring that every batch meets the required specifications before it reaches the end user. So, in essence, rejection and reprocessing are crucial tools in maintaining the integrity and safety of our pharmaceutical products. Let's talk about the rejection and reuse of materials in the manufacturing process. When it comes to reprocessing, it's important to understand what qualifies as part of the normal process versus reprocessing. For example, if we continue a process step after an in-process control test shows that the step isn't complete, this continuation is generally considered a normal part of the process. It's not classified as reprocessing because it's just completing the step as intended. However, reprocessing involves more deliberate actions. Introducing unreacted material back into the process and then repeating a chemical reaction is considered reprocessing unless this is part of the established, approved process. And this is a crucial point. Before doing any reprocessing, a thorough evaluation must be conducted. We need to ensure that reprocessing doesn't negatively impact the quality of the intermediate or the active pharmaceutical ingredient, especially considering the risk of forming unwanted byproducts or overreacted materials. In summary, understanding the difference between normal process continuation and reprocessing is key to maintaining product quality and complying with GMP guidelines for active pharmaceutical ingredients. Now, let's talk about reworking. When batches don't meet our established standards or specifications, the first step is to investigate the reason for this nonconformance. Understanding why the batch failed helps us determine whether reworking is appropriate. Once we've made that decision, the reworked batches need to go through appropriate evaluation and testing. This can include stability testing if necessary, and all activities must be thoroughly documented, including any concurrent validation efforts. It's also crucial to compare the impurity profile of each reworked batch with those of batches produced by the established process. This helps ensure that reworking hasn't introduced any unexpected impurities or altered the quality. If routine analytical methods aren't sufficient to fully characterize the reworked batch, then we should employ additional or more advanced methods to get a complete picture. This process is a key part of our GMP practices for active pharmaceutical ingredients, or APIs, and it ensures that, even when rework is needed, we maintain the highest standards of quality and consistency throughout production. Now, let's talk about the recovery of materials and solvents in our processes. Essentially, this involves retrieving reactants, intermediates, or the active pharmaceutical ingredient from sources like mother liquor or filtrates, and doing so in a way that complies with approved procedures. The key here is that these recovery processes must be carefully controlled and monitored, especially when it comes to solvents. This ensures safety, quality, and consistency in our production. Recovered materials should meet specific quality specifications, making them suitable for their intended use, whether that's recycling within the process or other applications. It's also common practice to combine fresh and recovered solvents or reagents, which can be cost-effective and environmentally friendly. However, it's crucial that the use of recovered materials, whether they're solvents, mother liquors, or other recovered substances, is properly documented. This documentation is essential for traceability, regulatory compliance, and quality assurance. Overall, recovery of materials and solvents is a vital part of GMP for APIs, helping us minimize waste, optimize resources, and maintain the integrity of our manufacturing process. For further support, please contact us. We're here to help you with any questions or additional assistance you might need after this presentation. Thank you so much for your time and attention today. If anything comes up later, don't hesitate to reach out. We truly appreciate your engagement and look forward to working with you further.